But as we said, women's lacrosse comes out, and they have 4 top 15 opponents on their slate. Now, the first game is on February 5th, which is Saturday, and it is going to be down in Virginia against number 11 Virginia, but it doesn't theoretically count because it's a scrimmage. And I'm like, you're playing the 11th ranked team in the country and you're ranked 5th. That's going to be a scrimmage. I don't believe that for a minute, but they say it's a scrimmage. Whatever. Friendly, we'll call it. And then 2 weeks later, they will... Anyway, no, they're going to be at Syracuse. Correction on that. But we're still going to be on by hook or by crook. Sunday, February 27th, the following week, they're home against Dartmouth. And then they go down to Florida. They go to Northwestern. Florida's ranked 10th preseason. Northwestern's ranked 4th, just above them. Then they get Johns Hopkins at home. Then they go to Hofstra, then Brown, and then the America East kicks in. But the funny thing about it is that they have some non-conference games interspersed with the America East games because Joe Spallina likes it that way. He likes to sneak games in midweek to give the players a taste of tournament play.
Yeah, one of those games being against Yale, one of 4 Ivy League programs that Stony Brook is facing this season. Stony Brook facing 5 NCAA tournament foes, and it's going to be a loaded schedule. You know, there's a few schedules I think are more competitive than this in Stony Brook programs, you know, and hats off to Joe Spallina and the crew for getting it done. A great list, honestly, of potential opponents this team could face, presuming they advance to the NCAA tournament again.
Well, here's the thing, and he even mentioned this. He's mentioned this many times, that because they're so successful in the America East Conference, they've won it 8 straight times, nobody takes them seriously because they say, well, you don't play anybody. And Joe Spallina's answer to that was, oh, yeah? Well, there's your oh, yeah. Syracuse, Florida, Northwestern, Princeton, and they sneak Princeton in between 2 America East games. It's a midweek game. So they got home against Vermont, they go down to Princeton, and then they get Arizona State, a Pac-12 team. And then talk about Gauntlet here. Saturday, March 26th is home against Vermont. Tuesday, March 29th, they go down to Princeton. Not a big trip. April 1st, Friday, which is only a couple of days later, 3 days later, Arizona State at home. Then, that Sunday, they go up to Binghamton.
I would like to even stretch that out a little further, and with the start with March 18th against Hofstra. So you're really going
Friday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Friday.
Yeah, that is, you know, that is, well, if we start from the beginning of the schedule, the beginning of the season, the scrimmage against Virginia sets you up to what you need to do to play Syracuse.
True.
Right, I think that is and you got a good break between February 5th and you got 15 days to figure out how you're gonna do it, how you're gonna improve. You know, I was wondering if they were going to get another scrimmage in between, or if they're at that max limit for competitions for the spring.
No, they got 1 game left open too. They could add,
right?
According to Joe Spallina.
You know, it's tough though. Like with COVID,
yeah.
You know, you almost need wiggle room.
I think that's the case with everybody, and hopefully, according to the latest reports, well, the first, again, will diverge a little bit because it does affect what we do here. There's no doubt about it, not only as a university, but also as athletic programs, that Omicron down in South Africa peaked and then plateaued, and there are some signs that might be happening here in New York, and because a lot of vaccinated people have gotten it, it's kind of defanged it a little bit for a lot of people. So hopefully it will have tapered off a little bit by then. But again, we're all keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, and the other issue too is for the games that's already been postponed in other programs like basketball. You know, it was because of other teams dealing with COVID-19 precautions and issues. You know, it hasn't been a Stony Brook home game that's been canceled yet due to an outbreak. So
we're very lucky. Extremely lucky. This is, like particle board, but I'll knock on it anyway.
And for Stony Brook too, because they got such a talented roster. Obviously, the squad returning Ellie Macera, who participated with Team USA in tryouts. Last year's America East Defender of the Year, Reina Sabella, brings great leadership and just great veteranship in that backfield. Also, people who are going to have to step up with Allie Kennedy and Terrell Miller having graduated in the attack, and Kaylin Hart and Siobhan Rafferty, two very talented scorers. And obviously a big addition attacking-wise in Kyla Zapolski, who has always been a thorn in the Seawolf side from UAlbany, now making the change, come to Stony Brook in her graduate season.
I love the term transfer portal because it reminds me of Star Trek.
Yeah.
The time portal. But it kind of is like that a little bit because it now enables players to not skip a year when they make a transfer. And the bottom line is, if a coach can transfer, why can't a player?
And I think it also eliminates some of these, like backdoor deals.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're secretly going around to try and just put it out there, let everybody know, and then it's an open and honest, discussion. So you're open for everybody.
Even though some coaches will say they hate it, some coaches will say they love it because it's a good way to improve quickly. You can,
Oh yes, you see that in Stony Brook in both the men's and women's side. The men's transfer class this season was ranked 8th best by Inside Lacrosse, and with the women's program, they got 2 top 15 transfers, Polsky being one, and a huge addition in Charlie Campbell. They being the new goaltender to replace Haley Hunt, who went back home to Lehigh. So now you got Campbell and Cameron Halsall, who was the starter for most of the games last season, and they're going to be dueling for the number 1 goaltending spot. Although with so many games in succession, you think it works in that favor where they're going to be splitting games, playing every other game as opposed to every game consecutively.
Many years ago, over 20 actually, the NCAA decided to tell what was then 1A football teams, now FBS, to cut their rosters down, to carry fewer people on their roster because they were carrying 100 players on it. Okay? More often than not, particularly in the power conferences, schools would recruit guys and basically ice them because they didn't want another school to pick them up and possibly hurt them later. So, you go to Michigan and you're a fourth stringer, and if what happened was they said you can't have that anymore. You're burying these guys. Yes, they get scholarships. That's nice, and if they choose to do something, get a degree with that scholarship, that's even nicer still. But they don't play, so they say cut your rosters down, and all those guys now who are legit 1A/FBS talent, they're free to go to other schools. That's why a Boise State emerges. That's why a Cincinnati emerges. And that's why we have this argument going on and on and on that, it's not all about the SEC. There are other talented teams out there. There are Baylors, for example, out there.
For Stony Brook Lacrosse, we're seeing it happen, too, in real time. Last year, obviously, in the men's program, Dylan Palinetti transferring from Maryland. Coming back, immediately winning Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. This season as well on the women's side. What we're going to see on the men's side with guys like Kevin Mack, who's a top 15 transfer as well. He's transferring in his graduate year from Michigan. He's a great passer, great player behind the cage, who we just know is going to work well with Palinetti. So Palinetti thrives in virtually any system.
Well, the great thing about Palinetti is that Palinetti, he gets to Maryland, he's buried. And he doesn't get to see as much action, doesn't develop. Okay? And he's from here. He's a Ward Melville guy. Okay, so everybody's saying, come back, play at Stony Brook, you'll be a superstar here. He does.
He did that.
And he's a Rookie of the Year last year, and he's going to emerge into a legit star in the America East. And the America East in basketball is a low-ranked conference. Okay, they're definitely in the bottom half, and the winner of the America East Conference can rely on a 13th seed at best.
Right.
Okay? That is not the case in lacrosse, either men's or women's. Okay? Because both sports have had number 1 ranked teams in recent years. Okay? Stony Brook women, the Albany men have been number 1 recently.
Same year, I think. The year after the other. Yeah, 2017.
Same year. Okay, it was the same year that an America East team was number 1 in both men's and women's.
2017.
Yeah. So now you got to take them seriously, but you still have the power conferences in lacrosse, which would be the ACC naturally. And if you get recruited by an ACC team, great. But the problem is your ACC teams tend to be pretty deep. So, and in Maryland, as you know, all the top power schools in Maryland are like on the same street. Right. I mean, it's like a 15-minute drive. You can hit all 5 of them.
Well, I also think with the portal, the kids have changed as well, too. I think 20, 25 years ago, players would be okay with sitting. It was a rite of passage. They looked at it that way and they said, okay, I'll wait until my junior year. And not in a negative fashion. I think just kids have changed. They want to get out and they want to play. And they look at it and they say, listen, I've got 4 years to play college sports. Mm-hmm. I want to play 4 years. I don't want to sit for 2 years and then play 2 years. So I think that desire to transfer. I also think with COVID as well, too, players have been given another year.
Right.
So they're graduating, and if you look at the women's lacrosse roster, the amount of graduate players or fifth-year seniors that you're looking at that are playing, I mean, that is a big change. It'll be interesting to see, Ken, if that works for the Seawolves this year.
Well, here's the thing.
There's a lot of
Go ahead,
veterans coming back, too, obviously. Rain Sabella, as I said. Jesse Arline, who's a great playmaker from net, also behind the cage as well. Bridget Considine, who had her season cut short due to injury, she'll be returning as well, I believe. So those are 3 big names alone who are returning as fifth-year seniors. And on top of that, obviously, as you said, the transfers and Kyla Zapolski, who played her 4 seasons at UAlbany, it's coming here. Obviously, Charlie Campbell as well. They were ranked 9th in total saves last season and were a perpetual starter for Virginia, the Cavaliers. Obviously, they're coming in using their final year of eligibility, and there's someone who I think emphasized that, where I don't expect Campbell to be sitting, game 1 or game 2 or the first several games. They're coming in, and along with Halsall, the 2 of them are going to make a big impact in goaltending because you have 2 true number 1 goaltenders in net at any given day.
And you remember we talked about that 15 days between Virginia and Syracuse? Mm-hmm. That could be something that's going on between those 15 days. I mean, competition makes the best out of us, I think, especially in the goalie position.
Well, what's also important here, too, is that for women's lacrosse in particular, once you graduate, what's there? I mean, at least with the men's game, you might be able to go pro if you're good enough, or you can, get into a pickup game and keep playing that way, or coach.
No, it's a great point. Yeah, because PLL and NLL, With the women's side, outside of Pro Women's Lacrosse League, which is now unlimited, Athletes Unlimited, there's not much out there at the moment. There's really no indoor.
That's been an ongoing problem with them. So if you are a senior and you're about to graduate and say, hey, you can play for another year, I said, hell yeah. Okay, yeah, I get to play. I mean, because I'm never going to experience anything like this in my life until Athletes Unlimited starts to put down some roots. I mean, where do I sign up? And that's why so many of them, I think, have stayed. It's just another opportunity. And the other thing too is that you're talking about Allie Kennedy and the 2 yellow cards. The Seawolves runs in the NCAA tournament have been fraught with frustration. Okay. Running into a Maryland who ends up winning it all, running into a BC where you get a couple of bad calls, and the other way around too, and you're stuck with unfinished business. You have the talent level to win it all, and if you're giving it another shot at it, you're taking it too, because you feel that this team, this program, deserves it. And I think that's the case with everybody from Joe Spallina on down. Actually, everybody who watches the program, everybody who follows the program is saying, break through the glass ceiling and let's get this done, because this team's capable of it.
And I think that's why you're seeing some of these graduate transfers that are coming in from other established programs as well, too, because they're saying to themselves, not that it's a diamond in the rough. I think we're well past that phase of being a diamond in the rough. But you're at that phase of they're one step away from breaking the glass ceiling, and then it could be just an explosion of what could have occurred. I mean, we could go on, like a UConn women's run in basketball. That's kind of, I view the women's program a lot in that way.
Well,
once they get it, I think it's going to go.
The team that they're facing this year, Northwestern, was kind of like that a few years back. That they were knocking on the door, and then finally they break through and they run off a dynasty, and they're still among the top teams in the nation. They're ranked 4th going into this year, and that's another test because Northwestern a few years back was just like Stony Brook, and I think that we're going to be talking about that a lot leading up to that game.
What I like about Syracuse, Florida, Northwestern, what I like about those teams is you're playing two teams in a sense. You're playing the team that's ranked 4, you're playing the team that's ranked 11 or whatever it is, but you're also playing the name as well too.
You got Syracuse and Johns Hopkins on your schedule. Now, Johns Hopkins is not as known for its women's programs as they are for their men's, but they're still Johns Hopkins, and they play their games at Homewood Field.
Right.
And Homewood Field, if you are a lacrosse player, is Mecca. And the Lacrosse Hall of Fame is on one end of the field. Okay, it's not a big stadium. It really isn't, and it's kind of old. And I did one game from there, the 2012 first round, last time the Seawolves men were in it. And I'm like, I know the history, but Laval's a better building. But that was my impression of Homewood Field. We have a better press box. We have better everything. But it's still... But the other thing about it is that neither Johns Hopkins nor Syracuse would give us the time of day for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, we had not established ourselves sufficiently. And reason number 2, they played their non-conference schedule against local schools. Why? Again, they're all on the same street. So what was Johns Hopkins doing their non-conference? UMBC. Well, they may not play. Well, they do have to play Maryland because they're in the same conference. But Navy and Loyola, and you got that. It's like the Big Five of Philadelphia in basketball. And so they're not scheduling people outside of that. The women apparently are. Syracuse, on the other hand, they they're just it was either Syracuse or Hopkins. When we were kids, it was either Syracuse or Hopkins, and nobody else even had a chance. It was basically their invitational. It was like UCLA with Kareem. And then, right around the time Stony Brook joined the America East and Hofstra left, you remember this, it was 2002, 20 years ago now, believe it or not. The America East retained the automatic qualifier, and Hofstra went to the CAA, which did not have one. So Hofstra had a better record than Stony Brook that year. But Stony Brook won the America East, and they got in. Hofstra did not. Hofstra fans were livid. Okay, because, first of all, they probably should have stayed in the America East, to be honest with you. But that goes back. There's a long story. Main thing between Hofstra and Stony Brook is that when Hofstra was in the America East, they didn't want Stony Brook in there. And it's like the UCLA-USC thing, in that a scholarship to USC costs several times as much as one to UCLA, and they're competing head-to-head. Hofstra did not want that. Hofstra knew that Stony Brook would eventually overtake them in the America East Conference because their scholarships are cheaper.
Yeah.
But now they're in the CAA, and they're in a one-bid conference, and they still haven't been in the NCAA since, and that's another story. But we've talked about that many times in the past.
Yeah,
but the important thing in here is that Stony Brook made the right move and got into a conference that had the automatic qualifier with teams that were on their level.
Mm-hmm. And